Hi everyone, so today I'm with Dom again, and we are going to be covering a new company called Firefly Aerospace. Dom's going to take us through a little bit of what they do and then their earnings. So Dom, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. All right, I'm sharing my screen. Can you see the article?
Yes, perfectly. CNBC.
Wonderful. So essentially, we're talking about a company called Firefly Aerospace. They're kind of like a commercial space travel company. So NASA recently and the U.S. government has done less work with NASA doing space missions. It's been more contracted out. So obviously, one of the bigger competitors you can think of is SpaceX. Rocket launches, landing things, sending stuff up to the space station, that kind of thing. So SpaceX isn't the biggest or isn't the only company in that space. We do have a couple competitors, and so one we're talking about is Firefly Aerospace. So for their Q3 results, there's definitely some positive and some negative. So one big positive is that the revenue is up. So it's up nearly
Wow.
38% to 30.8 million from 22.4 a year ago, and it's not nearly double from the previous quarter, which is great. Unfortunately, they have a total net loss of 140.4 million, and it's also unfortunate as it kind of goes into the IPO aspect is that their stock has dropped dramatically since their IPO in August. Unfortunately, they've had a couple of issues with a failed rocket launch in September, and then there was something else in the article that mentioned why the stock also sank a little bit. Um, let's see. No, I think it actually was just the rocket explosion. There it is.
Yeah.
But on the positive side, they do have a good backlog of money coming in because they do have contracts won from NASA to do certain type of moon missions, like moon lander missions and things like that. They did have a successful moon landing earlier this year. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was like this company and like a Japanese company that both were attempting to land something on the moon, and unfortunately, the Japanese one did not stabilize and it fell over. Where Fireflies was successfully landed, which is part of the reason that they grew so much so quickly because they proved themselves essentially that they were able to do what was needed. But like I said before, big negative is that a lot of the shares have been going down recently. So lost 70% of the value since opening day at the IPO back in August. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a mixed bag. Definitely some good with increased revenue, but you know, net loss overall and loss of value for the stock. But it did jump. It did jump 15% this past Wednesday, based on their guidance, and their guidance went up a little bit. Let's see, where was that section? Oh, here it is. Uh, Guidance went up to about 150 to 158 million, up from originally 133 to 145. So a
Mhm.
little bit positive outlook. But that's kind of it for Q3 updates. I'll kind of let Matt go over and talk about the numbers aspect and kind of the financials of them currently.
Okay. Thank you, Dom. Perfect analysis. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So, one thing I just wanted to add to what Dom was saying was from Seeking Alpha, which was right here. This is just a cool little graph I thought I would share of what exactly they're doing in their lunar modules and things like that. And they also have down here, where is it? It says that they did $1.3 billion in contract. Well, here it is. The company has $1.1 billion backlog, but this was in April, even I believe before they IPO. Now it's about 1.3 billion. And this is just piggybacking off of what Dominic said about they just recently got, I think, what was it, Dom? Like a $177 million contract from NASA or something like that, right?
Yes,
So
177 in July.
yeah, so this is just piggybacking off that. They do have a significant backlog. They are making a lot of cool things like transportation and stuff for the moon. So just wanted to add that little piece. But yeah, just looking at a couple of the other metrics here, we're going to take a look first at their free cash flow. And in 2023, they had negative 170 million. Keep in mind, like Dom said, they did IPO in August of this year of 2025. So I'm assuming that they received these numbers from the pre-IPO. So they always have obviously records from accountants of these numbers. So it's negative 170 million, and now it's negative 184 million. So not great when it comes to that. However, again, they do have losses in the company. It is a new company. Now, if we head on over to Simply Wall Street to take a look, Simply Wall Street is going to have that they have a negative 200 million. So this is more updated now for this quarter. And by it looks like, let's say 2027, it'll certainly be positive free cash flow. And I think I think the market's going to try to price that in. That's why Hopefully it surges. And then you have that it's going to be more free cash flow positive, and I think it's pricing in the market more or less. But now we're going to check the financial health of the company, and the financial health of the company is actually surprisingly good. Um, you have a huge cash, a lot of equity, and pretty much no debt. Only 30 million in debt compared to 995 million dollars in cash. So they could easily pay off their debt. And that's probably because of their backlog growth and their government contracts too. So keep in mind that probably goes into that. That's why they have such a large cash balance. So just keep in mind of those things. Now, if we take a look, however, at my DCF here, it's going to say that it's 80% overvalued. So it is quite an expensive company, however we look at it. And that's even based on Wall Street forecasts. Now, I'm not going to do historical growth because historical growth is just negative. Technically, it is negative because they're not free cash flow positive. So the Simply Wall Street one was actually being quite generous when it was overvalued by 81%. So just keep in mind of that as well, that the company is going to be quite high, even with the sell-off of, I believe it sold off, like Dom said, 61, 62%. It's been a pretty bad sell-off. Now, if we go to Tipranks, Tipranks is going to say it's a moderate buy, 5 buys, 2 holds. We have a low of 30, an average of 49, and an upside of 115%. So I would recommend, this is a highly speculative company. Obviously, be very cautious of it, and do your own due diligence when it comes to this stock, because you have to be careful with these IPO stocks, especially space stocks, because they're very wiffle waffle. There's no consistent free cash flow. It's very hard to predict a lot of the time, so just be careful of it. Dom, is there anything you wanted to add?
Not too much. Just reiterate that it's very much a gamble,
Yeah,
just being so early on. Definitely something to keep your eye on, but it's hard to just immediately suggest it as a buy. Yeah.
right, exactly. Yeah, yep, totally. Okay, thank you, Dom. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, thank you.